Most people think success is about intelligence or talent or even luck. But what if I told you that one of the most successful men I ever had the good fortune of meeting built his entire life on something far simpler and far more controllable? And if you understand it, you can begin to apply it immediately to your own life, not just in school, but in business, in your career, and in building real financial success and financial freedom. I call this concept outsitting the competition. It's probably something you've never heard of before. And once you see it, you'll never unsee it. Once you understand it, it's yours forever. Let me take you back to July 1st, 1995. This is a real story, true story about my life. It was my first day as a general surgical resident at Monmouth Medical Center in Long Branch, New Jersey. We were all gathered there in the surgical library. Every single surgical resident from the general surgery program had come back to Monmouth Medical Center from New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. This was a beautiful room. You've been in rooms like this, I'm sure. Beautifully appointed library, large conference table, bookshelves lining the walls. And the rookies like me were nervous as hell, trying to look the part, but shaking in our boots, I can assure you. It was the first day, and this was a big step after medical school. Now, the senior residents, some were confident, some were completely burned out, those who were near the very end of this arduous 5-year program. And in some cases, they had spent 7, 8, and even 10 years in some cases for various reasons, research and other stumbling blocks that they had come upon. And if you've ever been in a room like that, you know exactly the feeling. It's tense because it's the first day. Now, there were 2 doors in that room, one right over there and one right over there. I can still remember what it looked like. One led back to the hospital, and through those corridors, you went to all of the operating rooms and all of the ICUs and the hospital beds and the departments and so forth. But the other one, the one to my right over there, that led to the chairman's office. That was sort of a scary door. That was the Great Oz sitting behind that door. And what happened next completely changed how I think about success. Without any warning, the door opened and a diminutive but very, very imposing man, Dr. Charles Sills, walked in. No warm welcome, no small talk. He sat down and he began his presentation. He said, "This is graduate level education. Some of you may think that this is a teaching hospital. You're mistaken. This is a learning hospital. Everything you need to learn, you can learn here." And in that moment, he made one thing very clear. I was responsible for my own development, and you're responsible for your own development. And no one is coming to the rescue. No one is coming to do your work for you. And then he said something I'll never forget. He said something that changed my whole life. He explained his success, and he said these words: "I am who I am because I outsat everybody." Outsat everybody? At that moment, I'm thinking to myself, what does that even mean? And then he explained it. He got to the library first every single day when he was a surgical resident, and he left last. He would get there first, he would open his books, and he would begin reading. He would sit and read. And then little by little, other students, other residents would arrive. And then, hours later, little by little, other residents would leave, but he stayed, and he would keep reading. He never looked at the clock. He made that clear. He said, "I never looked at the clock," until finally the last other student, the last other resident left the library. And when that person would leave, he would look at that clock on the wall for the first time, and he would stay 10 minutes longer. Just 10 more minutes. That's all it took. But those 10 minutes made all the difference because it happened every single time he went to study. And over time, that became everything. But he wasn't the smartest, but he was the last one to stand up, close his books, and walk out. And that's when it hit me. Success is not about intensity. It's about duration. Many of you know that I did 15 years of training after 12 years of high school. Of course, through the 12th grade is what I mean. Now, here's where most people misunderstand this. They think success comes from knowing more, but knowledge on its own is not power. Knowledge only becomes power when it is applied. You can read every book, you can listen to every lecture, you can understand every concept, but if you don't act, nothing changes. And that's where outsitting the competition becomes so powerful, because it forces action, it forces repetition, it forces application, and it gives you that knowledge that you need to apply in the real world. In our case, it was in the world of surgery, but it could be in anything. It could be in banking, it can be in business, it can be in woodworking, it could be as a baker, a cook, a candlestick maker. It doesn't matter. You need the knowledge. And that's where the real growth happens. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, I understand that, but how far do I actually have to go? And that's where another concept comes in. It's something that I've come to call the 104-hour work week. And before you react to that, hear me out, because this is not about punishment. It's not about suffering. It's about capacity. It's about training yourself to operate at a level that most people are not willing to reach. Forget about this idea of the 4-hour work week. I've heard about it. I've looked at it. For me, it doesn't work. For the people that I know who've become millionaires, multimillionaires, and even a couple of billionaires, it's not part of the recipe for success. During my training, college, medical school, general surgery, cardiac surgery, the hours were long and they were difficult. For 7 years of surgical training, between general surgery and cardiovascular, open heart, we were doing 110 to 120 hours a week. That was routine. And that wasn't considered extreme. It was just what we did. It was what was necessary to get that intensity of knowledge, technical skill, mastery of the hands, confidence, and overcoming all of the fears and apprehensions that someone would normally have without a tremendous amount of exposure and training. You don't become great by dabbling. You become great by committing. And here's the part that most people don't understand. When you're doing work that matters to you, when you're doing work that you love, the long hours don't feel oppressive. They feel like progress. They feel like momentum. They feel like purpose. They feel like achievement, because you're building something. You're becoming something. And that changes everything. Now let's bring this back to you, because this is definitely not just about medicine. This isn't just about school. This is about business. This is about career growth. This is about financial success. This is about financial freedom and happiness. The person who stays focused longer wins. The person who keeps learning after others have stopped wins. The person who continues to apply what they know wins. So the real question is not, are you smart enough? The real question is, can you outsit your competition? Can you stay engaged when the others disengage? Can you remain disciplined when others get distracted? Can you continue executing when others quit? Because that's where separation happens, and that's where your future is built. Not in the moments of intensity, but in long periods of sustained effort. So remember this, there are no shortcuts. There's only hard work. There's only discipline. There's only persistence. And those who are willing to embrace that reality are the ones who ultimately succeed. That's the difference between thinking about success and training your mind for it. Follow Chuback Success Seminars. Stick with me. I have a lot more great information to share. Thank you.